I am here with Virgin Radio ahead of the Oasis reunion tour, talking to those associated or inspired by the band. Today I'm joined by Johnny Took from the Aussie band DMA'S. Johnny, thank you for speaking to me. How are you getting on?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
No, it's good to see you. How are DMA'S doing? It's been a couple of years since you last released an album. You busy?
Yeah, we're good. We've been hiding away and writing a lot, and experimenting with different types of songwriting and getting back to basics in some sense of the word. So yeah, it's been a very creative time for us, and it's nice to be able to stop for a moment and you know
Hmm.
think about what kind of album we want to make and all that kind of stuff. But all in all, we're really excited.
Well, your last album, How Many Dreams, sort of incorporated more sort of dance music, I suppose, electronic elements. Is this something you're going to explore a little bit further in your new work?
Probably not, to be honest. We kind of did that for the Glow um and How Many Dreams, and that was new for us at the time. And then we kind of felt like maybe we've taken that as far as we want to take it for now. Um, I think this album we kind of really went back to just like old school songwriting, which
Hmm.
is nice.
You told me off camera that you're now living in the country. Can we expect a western and country album from DMA's?
Nah, I don't think so. I think that'll be kind of like if yeah. Well, do you know what's funny? Is Mason and I, when we first met, we were in a country band, and like lots of our earlier songs, like Timeless and Step Up the Morphine, were written as country songs. Um, but country's kind of too popular now. If we started making a country album, it would be a bit weird. It might be a bit on the nose.
So no banjos and fiddles on the next DMA's then.
No. But the thing is, we could because yeah, we can play those instruments. So
Well, so if you're working on some new music, you're writing, but you recently collaborated with the Manchester band the Cortiners. How did that come about?
well, we've known those guys for years now. It was actually like Liam in the band who first heard Delete when it came out. This was even before we'd done our first album, and they invited us to support them on the UK tour, and and it was great because it was the first time we've ever been to the UK. So all of a sudden, I remember our first gig. I think I always get mixed up if it's Blackburn or Blackpool, but it's King George's Hall, I think, and and it was just insane. I'd never seen a gig like it. Flares going off everywhere, and basically, and yeah, and they kind of, I guess, helped launch us, build a fan base in the UK. So we're always like super grateful for their support. And then we thought it would make sense one time when we were in Manchester to get in the studio and write a song together, and it really came out in a few hours, and it was you hear that about a lot of songs that they kind of happen really songs that make albums a lot of time they happen quite naturally, and that was kind of one of those instances again. Yeah,
Was it a sort of shared language of your love of similar music that meant that you could easily get that song out into the world?
yeah, definitely. But something that was really cool is that I've always like I grew up listening to so much Britpop music as a kid, but like from Sydney, the other side of the world. Didn't really. I had a small group of mates who loved Britpop, and this was all before streaming and stuff, and so it's kind of like there was like five of us that knew all these Britpop bands, um, and so and then that inspired a lot of our songwriting. So to be able to write a song and then have someone who actually has a Manchester accent sing one of your Britpop inspired songs, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, because you have spoken quite often about your sort of love of alternative British music from the 80s and 90s. Um, and how did that get to Australia? How did that transcend over there? Was it sort of, were you outliers by liking that type of music?
Well, to be honest, like I was in high school and I had a group of five mates who were really into Oasis and Stone Roses and Block Party and Primal Scream and stuff like that. and we were just hand passing CDs around. You go listen to this, like burning CDs for each other, and like, and I didn't even realize how big the scene was, like, because I didn't grow up in that culture. So it kind of felt like to us in Sydney, just being a bunch of kids in high school, were going out and stuff, 14, 15, 16 years old. It They felt like they were our bands, so to speak, just because we didn't understand the global context of the whole thing. So it was quite a unique, time in my life.
Well, what was it about that era of music that resonated with you as a kid from Sydney?
Um, I think it was everything. Like I really liked. It's funny. Like someone said to me one time about my own lyric writing. They're like, "Oh, maybe your lyrics should be a little bit more direct and like really tell the story." But like the one thing I used to love about, say, Noel Gallagher's lyric writing is I kind of liked that they were, a little. They were poetic. They left room for the listener to interpret what it meant to them. That's something I really liked about it. When you listen to something like "The Drugs Don't Work," just it's all very emotive. I love the way that a lot of it, had acoustic guitars in it, but still went into those loud rock and roll stadium bits. But at the heart of it, because there was acoustic guitar in all those songs, you could almost like you could hear the core of the songwriting in the craft, and yeah, and the voices as well. Yeah, like Liam um and Ian Brown and stuff like that. Richard Ashcroft, like those voices were just kind of iconic.
Yeah, I can hear that even in DMA's music. It's that Manchester. I wouldn't call it a snarl, but it's got a similar resonance to that. And
It's
even
an attitude, right?
it's an attitude, isn't it? Yeah, it's an attitude by singing,
Yeah,
and it's a confidence as well, I'd say. Um,
yeah,
and you also it seeped into your sense of style as well. This era, you wear um, retro sportswear and Burberry caps and stuff. Is it the whole look of the time as well that got you?
yeah. I guess so. I think it's funny. It's like like I saw a meme the other day of like um, so I can't remember the generation that's coming through now, but they're all dressing like they're from the 2000s, And it's like, oh, and people are like, oh, millennials are like, oh, I used to dress like that, ha ha ha, like, and I think that was kind of like when we started out, it's like we were in the 2010s dressing like we were from the 90s or something like that. So it's like, I feel like that's like a really, I think it happened as well in like there was a big 50s resurgence in the 70s, you know, and I remember it, I remember in the Sydney music scene, at least in the 2000s, everyone was wearing fluoro, dressing like they're from the 80s. So it's like, I think there's that 20-year thing that kind of naturally happens.
I can totally see that. And is it because of these influences, these bands, that your music's probably most popular in the UK, maybe outside of Australia, but is it because of these influences that the UK is such a fan of your band?
I don't know, I guess so. Um, there's so many variables when it comes to making music, and someone once said to me that music is timing in more ways than one. And sometimes it's, you can have a particular sound or be writing about a certain topic, and then 5 years later, it's kind of like if you were making country music, 8 years ago or something like that, and then all of a sudden, country's becoming one of the biggest genres in the world again. You kind of, yeah, I don't know. I think you just got to stay true to the sound that you want to do.
Of course. And the crowd that comes to DMA shows, do you see it as being a crowd of people that maybe were young in the 90s that are sort of, yeah, they've had their Britpop fix and now they're looking for the sounds fresher, newer, but also still tied to that time?
Yeah, well, it's really funny at a DMA's gig, actually. The demographic is extremely vast. Because you kind of got like these older guys who have had kids, you know, the kids are maybe 13, 14, some of them. And they were big Oasis fans and loved all that 90s stuff, a 90s Britpop. Um, and their kids have obviously grown up listening to these records. Um, and that's one thing I really love about playing shows in the UK is like quite often there's like generations of family that come to the shows, you know, and they're enjoying it just as much as each other. Um, that's one thing I'm really proud of our fans is that um, you can't quite pick it, you know. It's it can be you can be quite surprised when you come to a DMA's gig.
Hmm. Do you get tired of the British media asking you these questions about Britpop? Because we've got a sort of an obsession with it over here that you know it keeps being as popular as it is. But is it a bit tiring to sort of get asked again about Britpop and those influences?
Not really, man. You know, you think of the alternative of no one wanting to ask you any questions, and that's a hell of a lot worse. So I'm just super grateful that people want to chat and ask about the music.
And obviously, we're discussing the era a lot right now with the impending Oasis reunion tour. Are you excited for these shows? Must be.
Well, yeah, how couldn't you be? You know,
And
it was pretty funny as well. Just like talking to friends over here. There's like so many friends in Australia have bought tickets and they've planned this big trip to Manchester or to Wembley. You know, then others have got tickets to the Melbourne show or blah 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 blah. And it's just kind of cool hearing you know, people are making big holidays out of this gig, you know, and getting time off work for it, and you know, and that's kind of cool. That it's pretty amazing, isn't it? That that's happening all around the world, and on the other side of the world. So I think it's pretty hard not to get excited about it.
have you ever seen Oasis before?
No, I haven't actually. Tommy has. Tommy saw them at the Enmore, I think, in 2004. I think. Um, Obviously, I we toured with Liam in the UK, and we played Manchester Arena, and you know, um, obviously it's not the same without Noel there, but hearing some of those classic songs in front of a local crowd, um, you know, yeah, just in Manchester and people screaming those songs back was actually something I'll never forget. Actually, pretty crazy.
Did you get to use toured with Liam? Did you get to spend much time with him and hang out and sort of get to know him as a person rather than this sort of icon that we see him as?
Yeah, I've spent a bit of time with Liam actually. A little bit in Australia and a little bit when we were recording in at Rack and on the road and stuff. I love that guy. He's so funny, man. It's like just a genuinely funny guy. And just he loves new music as well, which I love. You know, I've hung out with him before. He's like, listen to this, and I listen to this. And like he gets genuinely excited about young bands and and rock and roll music, you know.
Is he exactly how we'd expect him to be? Us mere mortals here looking in on the sort of Oasis machine.
I think so, but I think some people think that Liam is an asshole, you know, because he makes a couple of smart ass comments, but he's never like I've never heard him like sure he'll have a bit of banter, but I never hear him like I've never heard him like put anyone down. You know what I mean? Like he's always trying to lift people up and feel good about stuff. So I don't know. That's just me, but yeah, no asshole vibes. That's for sure. He's just funny. You know, just a funny, very witty guy and very genuine.
And he's still as rock and roll backstage. Is it beers flowing before shows, or is it, you know, has he maybe mellowed out as time has gone on a wee bit?
Oh, I think like all of us, it depends on the night, right? But I think there's something to be said. Like, you know, when I was younger, um, you know, we used to get hammered before shows, and you know that was kind of fun and whatnot. But the problem is once the gigs start getting bigger, you know, and you're playing in front of a few thousand, or you know, start getting to 15, 20,000. It's like people have people have paid good money. They've taken off their weekend. They've bought accommodation. It's kind of your duty almost to uh, to perform, to bring the show. But you definitely pick your moments, yeah.
And Oasis are returning to Australia on their tour. Has Liam given you the call? Have you got the text saying, guys, keep November free?
No, I think every band in the world wants that call.
No, yeah.
I'd take it if it came, but definitely not expecting it, Definitely not expecting it.
Will you try and catch him when you're out there at least, or will you go to one of the shows?
Yeah, I'd love to catch one of the shows. I think it'd be silly to miss it,
Of course. And what are your favourite songs? What are you most looking forward to hearing when you do attend?
Well, my favorite Oasis song is "I Hope I Think I Know." So I'm not sure what the likelihood of that being on the set list is, but I've got very fond memories of riding my bike into the city, going to TAFE. Just listening to that song on repeat. Swerving through the back streets of Sydney. So that would be super nostalgic for me.
Yeah, that's quite an emotive image, actually, of the sun beating down, Oasis in the headphones, riding your bike.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be such a part. I don't see them playing that one. That would be a bit of a deep cut if they've only got an hour and a half or something. But it would be one of my.
You never know. They bring out. I've seen Liam play some pretty deep cuts on his solo show before.
Yeah, that's true. We can.
Yeah, I think it's fun as an artist, like, to put in a deep cut because you as the artist have songs that you love that maybe people don't know as well, but you want the chance to be able to play them and to have their moment again in the sunshine. And so I reckon you might be surprised with what makes it into the set.
Is that something DMA'S are conscious of like, we have to play a certain amount of songs, we have to play Delete or Step Up the Morphine, or it's not per se your song, but Believe, the cover you did for Triple J, is that something that is almost demanded of you in the same way that Oasis fans will probably demand Don't Look Back in Anger?
Yeah, there's a few that we didn't play Delete one time, and the review we got wasn't great. Not like they said the gig was good, but like, how could you not play Delete, but yeah, but I like playing those songs because people sing along and it makes the show better. So I just find it weird when bands are kind of like, they get a bit snobby on one of their big hits or something like that. Yeah, we don't play that anymore. Like, kind of never really makes sense to me. People have resonated with a song of yours. I think you should feel grateful for that, and then they've paid good money for the ticket, so you should perform it and give them that moment.
So you agree with the statement of shut up and play the hits?
To an extent, not like I think it would be mundane if you only played the hits. That's why I think it's important to be able to, I think that's why it's important to be able to, put in some deeper cuts in there.
Of course. And Johnny, just before we go, Virgin Radio is launching its own Britpop channel, its own radio channel, constantly playing the hits of the 90s. I want to ask, apart from those Oasis songs that we mentioned, what are your favourite Britpop tunes? What are the ones that stuck with you from being a kid in Australia?
Let me think. If I was going to maybe like Lucky Man by The Verve, that's pretty big for me. Head On by the Jesus and Mary Chain, that's a massive one for me as well. And Love Spreads by the Stone Roses. Got very fond memories of driving out to the country, listening to that for the first time and being blown away.
That's great. Well, Johnny, thank you very much for joining me. Johnny Took from DMA'S on Virgin Radio. Thanks for chatting today.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.